About 10 minutes left. I can plug in a PowerPoint presentation from Dr. Pearson, who she was mentioning here, and I think I get about 10 minutes, is it, or so, maybe?
Yeah.
Or so. And I'm trying to find it here, and if I can't pull this one up, yep, I got it. Bang. So what I can do is unplug here. I'm just going to shut that down, set this here. Dr. Pearson, he's a Mayo Clinic doctor who has been going around and doing air monitor quality tests throughout mainly Wisconsin, a little bit in Minnesota, because it's mainly in Wisconsin, like she was saying. We're looking to Wisconsin as an example. 5 industrial sand mines in 2010. I think she stated 126. It's, I believe, permitted, proposed, and active is 131 now. March 1st of this year, there was 115. So we're seeing each month, there's more sand mines coming on. So what I can do is I'll just scroll down, and you guys can kind of read here. And like he had stated, it isn't just dust. It's the micron levels. A hair is about 10 microns. We're dealing with the micron levels of about 2.5, 3, 2.5 in that, so a third of what your hair is. As we scroll down here, this is, and I have samples of frac sand back at the church. Nice little, beautiful little beads. Took 1.4 billion years to create in the low-lying ocean towards the equator. It's round, it's hard, 8,000 psi compression strength. So it doesn't fracture, it doesn't break up. It isn't beach sand, it's not feldspar, it's not sedimentary particles that you'd normally find in beach sand. Here is the southeast portion of Minnesota where she's talking about. My county is right here in Iowa, and then it continues down, and then this is all Wisconsin. So it's just found in the far extreme southeast corner of basically Minnesota, west central Wisconsin, and northeast Iowa. And it's found everywhere. In our county alone, we have over 2,800 parcels. Anything larger than 10 microns is effectively cleared in your lungs, so they're effectively looking at, or they're constantly looking at the micron levels that are smaller than 10 microns. Anything smaller than 10 microns and less than and smaller than 4 get stuck in there, and you can't easily get rid of them. So this is a hair. That's a hair follicle. So the 2.5 micron is this one right here. So this is your hair follicle. This right here is a 10 micron, just less. And this little one are what the size of the sand particles are that are less than 2.5 microns. Very jagged. You can see how it's real similar to asbestos and mesothelioma. It lodges in your lungs. You can't. This is silicosis on the right-hand side, a healthy lung on the left-hand side. This is someone that probably obviously died of silicosis, absolutely associated. And there are new federal regulations that have just come out here in the last couple of weeks, breaking news, that are going to really, hopefully, dampen the sand mining industry up there, where they're going to have to start enclosing these large piles of sand to keep them from blowing, because when the wind gets whipping up there, it's like you're in the desert, and it blows off, and constant complaining. Silicosis, class 1 carcinogen. I'll just kind of go through. There are other different pulmonary diseases that are associated with, and asthma, and it's and he's been doing the studies, and I'm just kind of briefly going through this so we can hit this real fast. Kind of goes into explaining how few studies, and they had to look at studies outside of the frac sand mining industry a little bit because frac sand mining is so new, so they didn't have industry studies or peer-reviewed studies. Only 6 states have standards. I know the state of Iowa does not have standards. I'm not for sure if Wisconsin had them or if they are recently working on them. The Department of Natural Resources, very limited in their budgeting, so we don't have a lot of sources for the information. It's just not out there. And if you saw the last presentation over in the big room, you're just not seeing it's citizens that are demanding this. And what we're working on in our local level is that we want to set up some enforcement person that does this, and we make a special permitting process that would allow us to hire or educate someone or send them to school and come back and work at the county level as an enforcement agent against the sand mine, or to uphold some of our ordinances that we have in place with the ones that we're working on with dust and the other. I mean, it's unbelievable, but. Right, this is NIOSH, and then OSHA. I do have a release paper from OSHA talking about, they just recently, I think last December, really came out with a report that really talks about silicosis and the silica dust, and that's showing how small the particles are. The other thing that they don't talk about too with it is the diesel particulates. With the extraction of the sand and the moving of the sand and the semis and the machinery, the diesel particulates in the air have climbed, and they have done studies, and I'm not for sure where those are at. We have another person in our organization. We have a person working on endangered species. We have another person working on other ill effects of this industry. But our counties along the Mississippi River are really hit because the air gets in there and it doesn't readily escape. We don't have these winds that blow out the fresh air. So the farm machinery, the barges, and the train traffic that run up and down this Mississippi River corridor really add the diesel particulates into the air. And it doesn't get talked about. The diesel, and I think it's a bigger issue than what they're making it out to be. This is at the fracking pads. This is where they're fracking, and the release of the silica dust in the air actually at where they're pumping the sand in with the chemicals. And
May I ask a silly question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are the bluffs sand or are they sandstone?
Okay, so the formations are in a sandstone formation that range anywhere from say 35 feet to 150 to 200 feet.
Okay.
It's sandstone, but with that being said, it can be easily extractable, but they do blasting.
As in crushing the...
Well, they blast it and then they scoop it up and then they wash it, and the formations are all together. So like she was saying, 90%, it's a 90% pure silica quartz stone, but you can go and just, I don't have any with me. You can scrape it out with your fingers, and then you might get some that's a little bit harder, so they use blasting techniques to extract it. So it is in a formation, a sandstone formation. It's used as our water filtration system. Now, that we sit above the Jordan Aquifer in southeast Minnesota and northeast Iowa, and the Wanawak Formation and the Jordan, the St. Peter, that's our filtration system. And what they're finding is when they open those formations up to oxygen, we have lead and arsenic migration into the drinking waters, and they're finding that up in Wisconsin now. After several years of mining, they're seeing lead levels increase, especially way up north where they're doing the iron mining. So they do some air monitoring. This is what a little air monitor looks like. We're working with the University of Iowa right now, came to my town, professor there, and they set up air monitor qualities along the railroad tracks, and we're seeing spike levels. We haven't got the full results back, But with these open frac sand cars that come by, we are seeing spiked elevated levels of silica dust in the air. One geologist has it that basically at every mine site, it can plume up and come out 22 miles roughly, or roughly 20 miles out. That's a little bit heavier particles, but the real fine ones go up and can plume out even farther. So with 140 mines concentrated in a small percentage of Wisconsin, you're basically inundating the entire area, these small micron levels.
Is anyone able to track those fine particles as they move in the jet stream or whatever? I assume they get caught up in.
Right, and that's what
the
he's saying.
nation.
That's what he's saying is basically it's coming up and being dispersed out. Now, I don't necessarily know if there's any studies because this is so new.
It's too new.
It's too new. It's just a few years old, and we're not. Like she said, these studies are expensive. It's hard to find the people. I recommend and have the universities getting involved, and we're having some really good coordination between the University of Iowa coming up for us and doing these ambient air samples and realizing that there are spike levels, and it's something that takes 20 years or so to develop silicosis if you're exposed. So this is similar to the mesothelioma and asbestos industry where it's taking 25, 30 years for it to come out. So we're not going to see this for another 25 years, but these people that are living in these areas, this is the polyacrylamide. I think you're going to see in elevated levels of silicosis. Acrylamide does break down, and it does break down somewhat quickly. But they put it out. It's a cake, and they layer it out onto the farm fields, hopefully for the UV rays to break it down. But we live where there's algific slopes where we have cracks within our limestone, not only horizontally but vertically, that go, like she was stating, right into these caves, and the last person was talking about that, where the water can immediately get into the aquifers and these sinkholes along the Mississippi River that can allow literally straws to be straight the straw right down to the aquifer for contamination. This was a spill that came out. It went through a home. It went through his back door and out his front door, and it was pretty amazing. This is showing the sand mine there, and it actually broke free and moved down, and there was a home down in here, and it flowed right through and busted through his back door and went right through his house. And so we're seeing things like that happening, and it's not reported. Here it was. Here's the breakout, and it flowed right down. It was absolutely ridiculous. So what we're having, here's the diesel particulates showing that there's increased diesel particulates in the air. The industry is supposed to self-report these sorts of things. 90% of it comes from citizens reporting it, not the sand mining companies reporting their own violations. Wisconsin has very, very limited resources, and the Department of Natural Resources, the DNR up there, is the one that actually monitors that. So they cut their funding. Governor Scott Walker is pretty pro-mining in the state of Wisconsin, Republican, and so I don't think you're going to see increased DNR personnel to help us out. We actually had one DNR person. This is showing, I think, the diesel particulates in the air and how bad they are. And right down here in southeast and along the Mississippi River, you see how dark it is. That's, I believe, from the barges, the trains, and all the traffic traveling up and down the corridor that holds those diesel particulates through that valley there. I'll just get through quick, but that's basically it. I mean, I've got some other, back at the church tonight, I've got other PowerPoints. If anybody wants these PowerPoints dumped onto their computer or flash drive, I'm more than welcome to pass them over. And we have the economic impacts from Stephen Deller out of the University of Wisconsin, doing impacts of the mining industry and how it's a flicker effect, and how it doesn't necessarily create local jobs. It might create some temporary local jobs, and who benefits are the hotels, the convenience stores, but the mom and pop places, the bed and breakfasts are done because of all the truck traffic. And so anyway, I think we're about ready to wrap up here, and are we at time?
I'm the next presenter in here, and I don't care if you
Okay.
want to take a couple more minutes if you like.
Yeah, as people roll in, but,
Ask questions, whatever folks want to do.
right, so,
We're trying to.
yeah, any questions?
Did you say earlier that the mining is actually not of sand particles, but of rock?
All right.
Was that said?
It's not, no, it's, well, okay, so what's your question?
The sand, the mining of the sand.
The mining of the sand is a sandstone formations,
Okay.
but they're all in their individual little beads.
Oh, they are,
So
okay.
it's, you can go
So
in there and scrape them
It
out.
doesn't
Get
have to be
beautiful little-
powdered afterwards.
No,
But
no,
it
no,
is.
no, no.
I
They
have
don't, right.
But it is an underground formation?
Right, all of this is under our bluff, so they're scraping and doing strip
Okay.
lining to get
I
to these
see.
layers.
Okay.
And the layers have been in their current form in the driftless area for 500 million years. There's some of the
Okay.
oldest land formations, and what they're doing is coming in and basically strip mining to get to it. And what I can do is show you just a couple quick photos as she's getting ready here. I can show you the Menominee from the air of similar to what we're dealing with. And like I say, there's 140 mines roughly, 130, 140 mines within just a couple hours of my house, mainly in west central Wisconsin. There's a few in Minnesota. We have one, and one of the largest ones in Iowa, but it's not in my county. It's just 30, 40 minutes south of where I live. Huge operation. And these are typical of the operations. Complete destruction. There is no environmentally safe way to extract this sand. It's an oxymoron to say that they're going to come in and extract this sand environmentally friendly. It isn't going to happen. This company.
Do they have to do public notice for an operation of any size? Or
In the state of Minnesota, I do not know, but when they came to my county to open up the mine next to my house, nobody was even notified. The first that we heard about it was a little thing in the paper on a supervisor's meeting that the mining company had come to have a permit. So we gathered, everything, and we stopped them. They withdrew their permit.
Oh, sorry, man.
But I have a lot of information. If you come over to the church this evening, or, I'm going to be showing my film later, and then giving I have a 45-minute film, and then I do another 15-minute little Q&A of any questions and an update. But a typical mine will have 1,000 trucks a day coming out of it. So, and they do run 24/7. And you're seeing decreased property values basically to zero. We have instances on record where people have been trying to sell their home for over 3 years, and it's due to the sand mining and the proximity of these mines. So you're seeing, and when the mining companies come and they purchase the lands, they basically, and you have a home that's on a little acreage that isn't sitting on frac sand, or it's not within the sandstone area, they tell the homeowners that they're not in the business of buying homes. What they're in the business of doing is buying the land or leasing the land, and a lot of these companies lease the land, and they're from out of state. A lot of them, Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio, Canada. They aren't local companies that are coming in. It's a very specialized industry, so they're bringing in their own engineers, their own trucks, their own blasting crews. And they are creating some local jobs with truck drivers, some of the mining operators with the large machinery are, but for the most part, it's all Texas license plates, Ohio license plates. You see some from Oklahoma up in our area. And so you're really seeing a devastation to the local economy for the mom and pop bed and breakfasts along the Mississippi River.
Not just a local economy now, any economy in the future.
Any economy.
You're turning it into the moon.
Yeah.
You're turning it into the moon. It's not.
Yeah, right. And so that's basically it. And
You said how many